Over 120 millimeters of rain is about to hit Scotland in the next 72 hours. That is not a prediction. That is happening right now. And if you think that is shocking, wait until you hear what the weather models have just done in the last 24 hours. Right now, as you are watching this, an amber rain warning is in force across eastern Scotland. Aberdeen, Perth, and Kinross are in the direct firing line, 120 millimeters. Some areas could see 150 millimeters. That is more rain in 3 days than some parts of England see in an entire month. And here is the twist nobody saw coming. The snow is coming too. Over the Grampians, rain will turn to snow, heavy snow, at 300 to 400 meters elevation. And those onshore southeasterly winds, they are bringing a risk of large waves battering the coast. This is not just rain, this is a multi-hazard event unfolding across Scotland right now. But here is what you need to know. Where do you live? Comment below your location right now, and I will tell you exactly what weather is heading your way this week. Because what is happening in Scotland is just the beginning of a much bigger story. The models have backtracked completely. Let me explain what that means and why meteorologists across the UK woke up this morning absolutely stunned. For the past 10 days, every major weather model, the European model, the GFS, the UK model, all of them were showing the same thing: cold air pushing in from the east, easterly winds, snow potential for much of the UK. The kind of pattern we saw in early January, but bigger, more widespread. We were looking at what forecasters call a beast from the east type pattern. Bitterly cold, relentless blocking, snow across large parts of the country. And then, in the last 24 hours, the models did something they almost never do. They reversed completely. What was showing -8 to -10 degrees Celsius for next week is now showing -2 to -3. That is a backtrack of 5 to 7 degrees. In weather forecasting terms, that is massive. That is a model failure on a scale we have not seen since December 2021. Here is the problem. That cold air is still out there. It is sitting just a few hundred miles to our north and east. Bitterly cold air, snow-producing air, and it is tantalizingly close. But the high-pressure system that was supposed to pull that cold air across the UK, the models overestimated its strength. They got it wrong. And now, instead of snow, we are looking at cold rain, heavy rain, strong winds, and an unsettled pattern that could last for weeks. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You wanted snow. You have been watching forecasts all week expecting snow. And now I am telling you the models have changed their minds. Let me be completely honest with you. This is frustrating for meteorologists too. When the models show the same pattern for 10 consecutive days and then reverse course 48 hours before it is supposed to arrive, that is a model performance issue. And it is something we need to talk about. But here is what we can be certain about. The next 7 days are going to be miserable. Let me walk you through exactly what is coming. Thursday, right now. As you watch this, eastern Scotland is getting hammered. The rain is piling in from the North Sea. That amber warning I mentioned, 60 to 80 millimeters are expected widely. But over higher ground, 100 to 120 millimeters. Some spots could see 150 millimeters. That is not just flooding, that is disruption. Roads closed, travel chaos, medium likelihood, medium impact. The Met Office has assessed this carefully, and while it probably will not reach red warning levels, this is serious. And that snow over the Grampians, starting at 300 to 400 meters tonight, by Friday morning, it will be accumulating. Heavy snow across the highlands of Scotland. If you live in these areas, you need to know this now. For the rest of the UK on Thursday, outbreaks of rain, heavy showers moving into southwestern areas, a cloudy, damp day for most. Temperatures, actually just above average, 7 to 10 degrees Celsius. But here is the thing. Those easterly winds are starting to pick up along the east coast. Slightly fresher feel, and those winds are going to become a much bigger feature as we head toward the weekend. Thursday evening, the rain continues across northern Scotland, snow falling over higher ground. But here is the first bit of slightly better news. A drier slot will spread into parts of Wales and central England. Clear skies developing. But be careful. With those clear skies, temperatures will drop. Mist and fog developing by Friday morning down to 4 or 5 degrees Celsius quite widely. But behind that drier slot, another area of low pressure is already moving in. And this one is going to bring a very wet and windy day to the southwest on Friday. Here is where things get messy. That low pressure system pushes north. A band of rain sweeps across the country. But it is not just about the rain on Friday. It is about the wind. Strong winds around this low pressure system, particularly across Cornwall. We could see gusts strong enough to cause issues. Keep an eye on that. Eastern Scotland, still under that yellow rainfall warning. More rain. More accumulation, pretty miserable conditions continuing. For most of the UK, showers breaking out, some brighter spells, the risk of those showers being quite heavy. But overall, a fresher day. Temperatures 7 to 9 degrees Celsius. Not desperately cold, but combined with the wind and rain, it will feel unpleasant. And here is the pattern. Low pressure stalling over us. Why? Because there is blocking to our north. That high pressure system that was supposed to bring cold and snow, it is still there, but it is not strong enough to pull in that bitterly cold air. Instead, it is just strong enough to stall these low pressure systems over the UK. Slow moving lows, dumping rain again and again. Saturday, the low pressure does not go anywhere. It just spirals around. More rain. Temperatures 8 to 9 degrees Celsius by the afternoon. Unsettled conditions continuing across southern areas. Those easterly winds becoming more dominant across northern areas, but still not delivering the cold we expected. Sunday. Similar story. 6 to 8 degrees Celsius. Rain, wind, cloudy skies. The Atlantic is winning. That mild, or rather cool Atlantic air is dominating the pattern. Monday, into next week. And this is where it gets interesting. Colder in the north, low single digits, but again, not bitterly cold. Further south, 7 to 11 degrees Celsius. Still looking horrible, to be completely honest, but just not as cold or wintry as we thought even yesterday. Now, let me show you exactly what went wrong with the models, because this is important. This affects how we forecast and how you should interpret forecasts in the future. About 10 days ago, the models were showing a beast from the east scenario. Bitterly cold, really strong, relentless blocking with a completely non-existent Atlantic. Then late last week into the weekend, it trended to more of a battleground scenario. Cold air versus Atlantic air. Most runs were still showing cold winning out. Through this week, a few more mild runs appeared, but generally speaking, the ensemble members and operational runs like the European model were still on the cold side. And then today happened. Complete backtrack. Most runs now showing a milder scenario. Not mild. Let me be very clear. We are not talking double-digit temperatures, but we are talking about temperatures not cold enough for snow. 5 to 7 degrees Celsius with rain, instead of -2 to -5 degrees Celsius with snow. That is the difference. The GFS model, the American model, has backtracked from showing -3 to -5 degrees down to -2 to -3 degrees. That might not sound like much, 2 degrees, but it makes all the difference. It is the difference between snow and rain. The European model ensembles have backtracked too. Yesterday, many ensemble members were showing -6 to -8 degrees Celsius. Some were showing even colder. Today, much fewer. The operational run, the main European model run, still has some cold air, some snow mixed in, and it is middle of the pack, but nowhere near as cold as runs were showing just days ago. The GFS has been the most skeptical over the past few days, and perhaps it was rightly skeptical. You can see the low pressure system sinking south, trying to pull in an easterly, and it does a little bit for Scotland. There is a little bit of cold air mixing in, but that bitterly cold air remains well out to our east. The block is nowhere near strong enough to pull it in. Here's the critical point. The jet stream is too strong. These lows are too far north. And instead of tapping into that Arctic air sitting a few hundred miles away, we are staying on the cool side of the jet. Cool and unsettled to the end of the forecast period. This is similar to what happened in December 2021. Some of you might remember. We thought we were going to see a very wintry spell over Christmas. Then we got to the 21st, 22nd of December, and the models completely backtracked. A high pressure system to our north and east just was not quite as strong as the models were showing for days leading up to it. The cold air stayed just out of reach. And we ended up with rain instead of snow. It is happening again. And it is frustrating. Believe me, as someone who watches these models every single day, it is frustrating. But here is what you need to understand. There is still a chance the models backtrack again, back to the colder pattern. We are not far away from those conditions. A few hundred miles, a slight shift in that high pressure block, a slight increase in its strength, and suddenly we could be back in snow territory. But, and this is important, the fact that they have already backtracked today means we would have to see some really poor model performance for them to flip back to the other pattern once again. It is possible. But given what we have seen in the last 24 hours, you should not count on it. So what does this mean for you? Let me break it down by region. Scotland, you are getting the worst of it this week. Eastern Scotland in particular, that amber warning is real. 100 to 150 millimetres of rain, flooding likely, travel disruption, and snow over higher ground. The Grampians, the Highlands, 300 metres and above. Heavy snow, accumulations building. This is not a drill. If you live in these areas, prepare now. Northern England, heavy rain today and tomorrow. Outbreaks of showers through the weekend. Those easterly winds picking up, making it feel colder than the thermometer suggests. Temperatures 6 to 8 degrees Celsius. Not desperately cold, but combined with wind and rain, it will feel grim. Midlands and Wales. A drier slot Friday morning, but do not get too excited. Rain returns Friday afternoon and continues through the weekend. Temperatures 7 to 9 degrees Celsius. Cloudy, damp, unsettled. That is your forecast. Southwest England. Very wet and windy on Friday. That low pressure system moving through. Strong winds, particularly Cornwall and Devon. Keep an eye on wind warnings. Rain continuing through the weekend. Temperatures 8 to 10 degrees Celsius. Southeast England. Rain Thursday. Drier Friday morning with risk of fog. Rain returns Friday afternoon. Unsettled through the weekend. Temperatures 7 to 10 degrees Celsius. Not as wet as Scotland or the southwest, but certainly not pleasant. Now, precipitation totals. This is important. With these slow-moving lows, we are not just talking about one day of rain. We are talking about repeated bouts of heavy rain. Some areas could see 50 to 80 millimetres over the next 7 days. That is on top of what has already fallen this week. Ground is saturated, rivers are high, flooding risk is real, and here is the forecast that matters most, the longer-term pattern, because this unsettled weather is not ending on Monday. The blocking to our north and east, it is not disappearing. It is just not strong enough to bring the cold. But it is strong enough to slow down these Atlantic systems. Slow-moving lows, week after week, cold, not very cold, wet, windy, blocked. That could be the pattern for the next couple of weeks. Precipitation is going to remain quite high. The blocking is not going to help with colder weather, but what it is going to do is slow that precipitation down to a snail's pace. Slow-moving rain systems, horrible conditions. Similar to what we have seen this week, it could be a rinse and repeat, perhaps a colder rinse and repeat as we see some chillier air mixing in, but the same rain, just with temperatures a few degrees colder. Cold rain, that is the recipe from the latest runs into next week. Temperatures dropping into the mid to maybe even low single digits for a time, but again, not quite cold enough to see wintry conditions widely, 5 to 6 degrees Celsius. Rain, not snow. Now, I said I would tell you about the one piece of hope. And here it is. Some of the longer range charts looking beyond next week into early February still show blocking around. High pressure to our north and east. And with that pattern, there is still a chance, a possibility that we could see something colder into early February. Not guaranteed, not even likely given how the models have performed this week. But the atmospheric setup for it still exists further down the line. For the next week, into early next week though, those easterly winds are going to arrive in some capacity. Just nothing like we thought even yesterday. Nothing remotely close to what we thought at the start of this week or through the weekend. Here is the thing about weather forecasting. Models are tools, incredibly sophisticated tools, but they are not perfect. When all the models show the same pattern for 10 days and then reverse course, that tells us something. It tells us that the atmospheric setup was balanced on a knife edge. A slight change in initial conditions, a slight shift in pressure patterns, and the outcome changes dramatically. In this case, the high pressure block to our north and east was overestimated in strength, just by a little bit, maybe 10 to 20 millibars, but that small difference was enough to keep the bitterly cold air at bay. A few hundred miles makes all the difference. Does that mean forecasting is useless beyond a few days? No, it means you need to understand probability and uncertainty. When a forecast shows something 7 to 10 days out, treat it as a scenario, not a certainty. The closer we get, the more confident we can be. Within 3 to 5 days, the models are usually pretty good. Beyond that, there is increasing uncertainty. And when models show a dramatic pattern change like they did this week, be aware that dramatic pattern changes are also the most uncertain. They are the forecasts most likely to shift as new data comes in. So what should you do now? Here is my advice. 1. If you live in eastern Scotland, take that amber warning seriously. Prepare for flooding, travel disruption, check on vulnerable neighbours, stock up on essentials if you can. This is real, and it is happening now. 2, for the rest of the UK, prepare for a wet, windy, unsettled week. Maybe 2 weeks. Have waterproofs ready, expect travel delays, check weather warnings daily, because they could change as systems develop. 3, if you were hoping for snow, I am sorry. It is probably not happening next week. But keep an eye on early February, there is still a chance. 4, comment below where you live. Tell me your location and I will give you a more specific forecast for your area. Because while the overall pattern is clear, local details matter. Coastal areas will see stronger winds, higher ground will see more rain, urban areas might see localized flooding. And 5, Do not lose faith in weather forecasting. Yes, the models got this wrong. Yes, it is frustrating. But without these models, we would not have had any warning about that amber rain warning in Scotland. We would not know about the flooding risk. The models are imperfect, but they are also incredibly valuable. Now, let me give you the numbers that really matter. The numbers that affect your daily life this week. Rainfall totals next 72 hours. Eastern Scotland, 80 to 150 millimetres. Northern England, 30 to 50 millimetres. Wales and Midlands, 20 to 40 millimetres. Southwest England, 40 to 60 millimetres. Southeast England, 15 to 30 millimetres. Wind speeds Friday. Southwest England, gusts up to 50 to 60 miles per hour possible. General UK, 30 to 40 miles per hour. Eastern Scotland, 20 to 30 miles per hour, but easterly direction making it feel colder. Temperatures next 7 days, Scotland 4 to 7 degrees Celsius, Northern England 6 to 8 degrees Celsius, Midlands and Wales 7 to 9 degrees Celsius, Southern England 8 to 10 degrees Celsius, not desperately cold but feeling cold with wind and rain. Snow levels Scotland 300 to 400 metres and above, heavy snow possible over Grampians and Highlands, accumulations likely Friday into Saturday, lower levels seeing rain, fog risk Friday morning, Wales and Central England, visibility could drop below 100 metres in places, take care on roads if travelling early Friday, flood risk. Amber for eastern Scotland, yellow for many other areas, ground is saturated, rivers are high, even moderate rainfall could cause issues now. Here is what I want you to remember from this forecast. The next week is going to be miserable. Cold rain, strong winds, unsettled conditions. It is not going to be bitterly cold. It is not going to snow widely. But it is going to be unpleasant, repeatedly unpleasant. The models have backtracked from showing snow and cold to showing rain and cool. That is frustrating. That is a model performance issue. But it is also the reality of weather forecasting. Sometimes the atmosphere does not behave the way we expect. That bitterly cold air is still out there. A few hundred miles away, tantalizingly close. But unless something changes dramatically, it is going to stay out there, just out of reach. While we get stuck with slow-moving lows dumping rain across the UK week after week, is there hope for February? Maybe. The longer range charts still show blocking, high pressure to our north and east, the atmospheric pattern for cold weather. But given how the models have performed this week, I would not bet on it. Hope for the best, but prepare for more of the same. One more thing, and this is important. Weather patterns like this, where we get stuck in a blocked, unsettled pattern with slow-moving lows, they can last for weeks. We saw it last year. We have seen it before. Once we get into this pattern, it can be hard to break out of it. So do not expect this to clear up quickly. Plan for at least another week, possibly 2, of unsettled conditions. The question is not if it will rain. The question is how much and for how long. And that is where you come in. Comment below. Tell me where you live. Tell me what you are seeing. Are you in Scotland dealing with that amber warning? Are you in Cornwall preparing for those strong winds Friday? Are you in Wales seeing that fog Friday morning? Share your location and I will give you specific details for your area because weather is local. The overall pattern might be unsettled across the UK, but your experience will depend on exactly where you are. Coastal or inland, low ground or high ground, north or south. It all matters. The next video is coming soon, and here is what we will be covering, that early February potential. Is there any chance of cold returning? What are the models showing beyond this unsettled period? And I will break down exactly what you need to watch for, the signals that would indicate a pattern change, the signs that cold air might finally push in. Do not miss it. For now, stay safe, stay dry if you can, and remember, comment your location below for your personalized forecast. This is not